Good morning, everyone. I'm Jan Erickson from Stepping Aside, and welcome to Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune for the 13th day of September 2018. I've been experiencing some difficult energies here this morning, and so I want to cast a quick circle. I'm going to do it quickly, and I'm not going to explain it, and I'm going to do it in Latin, so I apologize for that, but it just helps me. I thought I was going to be able to get through this without doing it, but I don't think so. So just give me a moment here, and I'm going to do this quickly, and we'll get going. Circulare, circumflecto, circumlevare, circumferro, eragona vitas, eragona vitas, eragona vitas, eragona vitas, veritas revelat, salva veritate. Okay, I feel better. They can knock on the circle all they want to, but they're not coming in. So anyway, today it's the 13th of September, and we can reduce that down to the 13 to a 4, but I don't. I view it as the master witch number. I was born on the 15th, or the 15th, the 13th. So I just, I view the 13 as a magical number. So I tend not to reduce it like master numbers. I call it the master witch number. And the interesting thing about it is if you do, though, 13 reduces to 4, and you add that to 9, and guess what you have? You have 13 again, so you just can't get rid of us, can you? So anyway, we have illumination for 2018. That's an 11. I'm not going to reduce that ever this year. I don't reduce master numbers. I just don't. I think they have a wonderful, vibrant spiritual energy all of their own, and so they need to stay as they are and be what they are. Source presence tapping us on the shoulder saying, hi, remember me? I'm you. So, but anyhow, I wanted to say something also about today. 3 years ago today was my last injection of a biologic. I had, I guess I still have it, rheumatoid arthritis, although I'm in clinical remission with it now. And what I did, I became a cannabis patient in 2010. The drugs that the doctors were giving me weren't helping. I stayed severe for 13 years when I finally went into remission. Again, 13 figuring in. I was born on the 13th. I don't know why 13 figures so prominently. I don't make it happen. It just happens. And so I don't remember what day the 13th was on in 2015, but whatever day it was, that's the day every 2 weeks I would do my Humira injections. Well, it was the second biologic I had been on. I'd been on Enbrel, and I think I was on that for, I don't know, a long time, 7, 8 years, something like that. And it just wasn't working anymore. That can happen, you stay on a drug for a while. I mean, it didn't really work anyway, but whatever it was doing, it wasn't doing at all. My tests were elevated and all that, although they always were anyway. I just stayed in this weird, severe range, and unfortunately, nobody ever tried to do anything really about that, save just handing me the standard drugs that you give people for RA. Well, when I became a cannabis patient and I started on that, and I did my grow and I made my medicine, and then I decided how I was going to use it. And 2.5 months later, after doing concentrates, and I didn't even do oil yet, I was just doing, infusions and stuff like that, and raw cannabis and just regular, smoking and vaping and all of that. I was taking a saturation approach. 2.5 months later, I'm in clinical remission. And I had been coming off all the drugs along the way, other than the biologic. And so in the middle of March of 2011, I was officially in clinical remission. But I stayed on the Humira because I was a little terrified of all of it because I just didn't know, But I stayed on it until September 13th, 2015. I had been getting brave and stretching my doses out. You do an injection every 2 weeks with that particular one. And I'd been, like even going as long as over a month between. And I was not having any return of symptoms. I was still a cannabis patient. I'm also an herbalist, so I was using herbal tinctures I was formulating specifically to deal with, they're anti-rheumatic in nature, herbs that are like that. And so I formulated a tincture that I still use today. And I was not having any return of symptoms. So I've been off of all prescribed drugs now since this day in 2015. So for 3 years, I've been all on my own and I've not had any return of symptoms. I'm doing very, very well. I have damage from it, and sometimes those areas might get a little inflamed, but I can deal with it. And it's always because I've overused them. I've been out in the garden pulling weeds or whatever. So it proves that number one, that cannabis is not a bad thing, that it can save your life because it saved mine. And anyway, I just wanted to share that. So if you're someone that has unfortunately been labeled chronically ill and you live in a cannabis state where cannabis is legal, go for it because I'm going to tell you, do your research. It's everywhere now. Cannabis can save your life. It saved mine. And I know that it's saved others. So anyway, I just wanted to share that today. That's another 13 that figures into my life. And today's my 3-year anniversary of my last Humira injection. Yay. You never want to take those kind of drugs if you don't have to. They're hard on your system. I was a toxic mess for all those years, and that's why I never healed. Cannabis puts all that in balance. It gets your endocannabinoid system functioning, it gets your cannabinoid receptors firing. And wouldn't you know, when all that got taken away from us so many years ago by the government saying, oh, cannabis is evil and it's dangerous and all of that after having been in the pharmacopoeia forever. Well, that was all done for political and business reasons and profit and all of that. They didn't want hemp, they didn't want cannabis. Other people wanted to make money. So of course it became demonized to the detriment of our health collectively. So at least in my opinion. So anyway, let's count 13 and see what we have for today. Well, we have the 7 of Swords, which I know already. I'm gonna do another card because to me this is theft of intellectual property. Okay, I don't know why I think that, but well, probably because someone's stealing swords, and swords is about the mind and the intellect, and so to me, he's people are probably at rest, or they've been in battle. You can see the tents in the background, and they've got their swords sitting there, and they're taking their eye off the ball basically, and they're not paying attention, and someone's taking something from them. So today, this is telling us maybe we need to not take our eye off the ball because he's having a good time while the other people are in there resting or partying or whatever they're doing after a battle. I guess it depends on how things went, huh? If it didn't go so well, maybe they're just getting drunk and trying to deal with their grief and their loss while this guy's out there taking everything from them. So I guess it just means don't get so caught up in your own mind that you don't pay attention to what's going on because a lot's being taken from you. Let's pull another card though and see if it can give us just a little bit more information about what that might be. I think there's a lot of mind games that are being played these days. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is the truth. No, that's the truth. No, this is the truth. And we're just all trying to figure out what the heck's going on. It's like you've been conned. You've been conned. You maybe you can't put your finger on it, but you've been conned. Somebody's sold you a bill of goods. They've told you something that isn't true. They've deceived you. You might not be able to prove it, but you know it. And I think that, what we're seeing right now in the world is a lot of deception, a lot of confusion. We have a president who says one thing, 2 minutes later, he says another. If you hear that something has been settled with an individual, the next thing you know, he goes out on Twitter and says the person's been replaced and by whom, after the other person thinks, oh no, I'm still there. They're not. They're gone. They just don't know it. And that's what this reminds me of. Stuff's happening behind the scenes to people. They don't know it. by the time we figure it out, could be too late. See, but the disrespect alone, you know, when somebody takes from you, somebody steals from you, they steal your trust, don't they? When they play you, when they con you, they steal your trust, don't they? It's a terrible place to be, isn't it? There's got to be some semblance of trust. You know, they left their swords out there thinking that they were fine. So either this guy's actually with them, only not. They think they've left him in charge, and clearly that wasn't a good thing. And again, the Four of Pentacles, which we just had the other day. I think that was the day that I went a little nutty after the book came out, Bob Woodward's book. It's like I'm up like to page 27, and I'm like, oh my God. So what is going on? And I think how I interpreted this that day, and I think I'm going to do it the same way today, is that we got to think about what we have. You know, we took the eye off the ball. Maybe we trusted somebody we shouldn't, left this guy in charge, maybe, and he's stealing from us. I mean, didn't we have what was it, Pruitt? That, I mean, he had people sourcing out hand lotion for him. Was he the one with the skiff room that he had? I don't know. One of them, I don't know. None of these things, you know, you're supposed to drain the swamp, so you fill it with people who take from us. See, this is what happened. You know, you put your faith in somebody, you put your trust in somebody, and look what's happening. They're stealing from you. So here, what I think I interpreted this to be, and it's the first time I've ever done it. Usually this is about maybe miserliness or hanging on to things that you shouldn't. But here, I think what this means, especially in light of things being taken from us, is we better stop and think about who we're trusting and who we're putting our faith in and how we're creating our foundation. You know, have we given away the store to someone who's just going to take it? Oh, I think so. I think we're finding that out, aren't we? If any of these books are to be believed. You know, and look, if it was just, you know, Omarosa coming out, and I don't think you should dismiss this woman, but I know people do. It might be tempting, but everything seems to be, you know, in line, in synchronicity. So no, it's just more stuff to know. That's all. But when you see this, we need to stop and take stock of things. And what is our foundation? And are we about to lose everything we've built? You know, because, you know, for some of us, it may not be much, but it may be all we have. And is it all being fleeced? Because that's what this is. It's not just theft of intellectual property, it's theft of property, folks. And we can't let that happen. We've got to sit and think about this. We've got to be very measured. This guy's very, very measured in what he's doing. It's all right here. He's got all of his assets, all of his wealth, all of his legacy right here. It's his foundation. And he's hanging on to it because it's like, hey, what's going on here? Well, this is what's going on here. All right. So we're getting a lot of synchronicity in these cards these days, aren't we? I think so anyway. Of course, I'm here every day. But let's take a rune. I've been in that situation in my personal life more than once where I've known something isn't right, and, you know, only to find out later that, you know, there was a situation where a group of us were conned by someone in our group. And it's not a good feeling to sit there and trust somebody and realize they weren't who they said they were, and that they lied, and, you know, they took advantage. And while it's not the end of the world, I suppose, on one level, on the other hand, it is, because, you know, you have to be able to get up every day and trust certain things are real, you know? And when you have a situation where it's not, and that somebody's actually doing something behind your back, That is just the worst feeling, isn't it? Well, sometimes we're just willfully blind to these things, deliberately blind. We just don't want to see it. I think some people are experiencing that maybe now. Not too sure how it's all going to shake out, but at the same time, if we just open our eyes and pay attention, and when something doesn't feel right, explore it, just explore it. You might find that it's simply your own perception informing that, and you're the one that's just wrong, and it's actually just fine, and that there's no problem. But equally, it could be that there is. And so listen to that inner voice. And if you think something isn't sounding right or feeling right, pay attention to it. Take a pause. You don't have to go forward. You can wait. You can always say to somebody, you know what? I think I want a night to sleep on this. Or, I think I want to research this a little bit more. Or I want to just have some time to let my thoughts settle before I make a decision. How many times do we not listen to that voice? We proceed anyway, and we take the eye off the ball. We trust somebody we can't, and there you go. And here we have Ingwas again. I don't look when I pull these out of the rune bag. I just start talking to you, and I just jostle my hand around and let the runes fall through my hand. And this is what happens. Again, we've got Ingwas, the 22nd rune of the Elder Futhark. Again, cosmic builder, a master number. It's the release of intention. It's the release of energy suddenly. It can refer to our genetic inheritance. It can be a good garden rune to have. I've said this before. I make a garden bind rune that I hang about in my different garden spaces, and it helps with the garden growth and harvest and abundance and all of that. But it's basically the seed, and it's the energy within the seed for expansion. Okay. And when you see this rune, we have the ability to create, right? It's talking about our ability to create. So if we're taking our eye off the ball, like this guy, and trusting people, we're handing that creative process over to someone else, aren't we? We're believing only what he says and maybe not what the truth shows. We're just willfully blind here. And we're trusting something we shouldn't. So as far as being the cosmic builder, then, we're allowing somebody else to build. We're allowing somebody else to build. I had an update come up on my screen right there. Like, no, I don't want to restart now. But it tells us that we have fertile opportunities to create something new. So if we've got a situation here that we're uncomfortable with, that we feel like we're being used, if we feel like we're being ripped off or stolen from or deceived or any of those things, we have a chance right now to sit back and take stock of all of it and think about the future and what it is we want to see created going forward. Ingwas helps us to overcome illusion. And I think that, unfortunately, that's what we are being asked to believe now, is a bunch of illusion. Now, one can argue that we're always asked to believe illusion when it comes to the government, and I wouldn't disagree with that. I think that's probably true in many respects, but it isn't true completely. And there has to be some kind of foundation that we can all trust going forward. And I'm just not sure that what we have right now is that foundation. I think that a lot of red flags are going, and bells and whistles are going off. I think that we're being asked to believe something that doesn't reflect the truth of everything else. And so it threatens our very foundation if we can't come to the truth of all of it. Then our very foundation is threatened. Let's say it that way. Again, you have to be able to get up in the morning and have some semblance of trust that the day is going to go, in the right way, or at least somewhat right. That the traffic lights are going to function and people are going to drive the right way going down the road, except right now when they're evacuating from the storm and they've allowed you to go on the other side of the freeway in the same direction. That's so cool. I watched that yesterday. I'm like, wow, that is so cool that they're doing that. I just remember when Katrina happened and people were trying to come across a bridge and they were held away at gunpoint. They weren't allowed. They weren't allowed to leave. I don't understand. You see, sometimes things happen that are just funky. They don't make any sense at all. And so when that's the case, we all have to sit down and take time to think about what's really going on, to pause, let spirit inform, and to allow that process to unfold in a way that's based on truth and not illusion. So I think that the other thing is that Ingus also promises a successful outcome. So I think that whatever is happening here, sometimes, and I hate this part of polarity, we have to experience the bad to understand that it's bad. I don't know why we need to do that anymore. I would think that we have grown up spiritually enough that we can understand when something is bad. I don't have to shoot somebody and kill somebody to know that that's not something I want to do, right? I don't have to do that. I know that. I don't have to, put my hand in the flame and know that and not know that I'm not going to get burned. Of course, it's going to burn my finger. I don't have to do that, right? I mean, there's so many things that we can just know that we don't have to engage in to know it's a bad thing. But I think that we're just trying to get the last little bits, maybe, of the darkness in our lives and get it illuminated. It's not going to be fun. It'll be a bumpy ride. But at the end of the day, when the truth all comes out about everything, and I think there's a whole lot of truth that needs to come out, I think that we've lived in this bubble all of our lives, and there's a lot of stuff going on the outside of that bubble. We cast a circle today to keep everybody out from our little bubble here, so we could do some work. But eventually, you've got to go out into that world and out of the cast circle, and you got to figure out how to do that in a way that doesn't encroach on others, and you live up to your word and all of that. We have to live in the world cooperatively, and we can't be this continual expression of polarity where it's bad guys versus good guys. I mean, it simply cannot come down to that. We're all just people, and we're all part of the same source energy. In that respect, we're all one. And as hard as that is for people sometimes to accept and feel good about, at some point we're going to have to, and realize that the games and the antics don't serve anyone. So in any event, have a lovely weekend. I won't be here tomorrow. We're just doing this Monday through Thursday now, and I'm going to continue to harvest my beans. I still have more to do. I did some last night. It's just, I have I have herbs everywhere that I've been doing. I harvested a bunch of shiso. We've been harvesting the corn, and I've been a note about corn silk. Don't ever throw away your corn silk. If you're doing, there's different kinds of magic. So if you're, saying say you want to maybe have a pumpkin, you're going to use a pumpkin in a spell. You could use this as hair. Just saying. Anyway, and if you're not going to use it as hair in a spell on top of a pumpkin, where maybe you have a larger pumpkin and then you have a smaller pumpkin, and you're going to transmute the energies of the bigger pumpkin into the smaller pumpkin. Maybe that smaller pumpkin has a little X where the mouth should be. Yeah. But if you don't want to do that, corn silk is a great diuretic, and it can be dried and used in tea, and I do it all the time. And so if you have fluid retention, it's a wonderful way to help with that. So include it in your tea. Never throw away your corn silk. It's extremely useful no matter how you do it. Anyway, thanks so much for stopping by. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next Monday. I'm Jan Erickson with Stepping Aside. This has been Somewhat Daily Tarot and Rune, and blessed be.